If we're going to go, you're the Rockin Reverend, I guess I could be the Viking Vicar. Is that
that is perfect. The Rockin Reverend. Oh, we got it. Like, he has to be the third mic. He's the third pastor, man. It just happens. And he's bearded.
So yeah, the Viking Vicar from the wasteland of the Midwest.
Party on, Todd.
Party on, Sal.
Rock on.
Rock on, sir.
Well, welcome back, podcasters, to another episode of the Party on JohnCast, a podcast of theology, music, whatever we're drinking, and just really awesome, righteous topics.
Amen.
I'm the Reverend Sal Marco, ordained teaching elder in the Presbyterian Church USA in the Presbytery of the Highlands. Got it right this time. We actually just changed the name of our presbytery.
Oh, it's not the Newton Presbytery anymore?
It's combo, right?
Anymore, nope.
Well, Newtonites around are just insulted by that. Not really.
We can't do our Fig Newton joke anymore at presbytery meetings.
No. Oh well.
So, and I'm in the validated ministry of hospice chaplaincy.
Awesome. Well, my name is the Rockin Reverend Todd Laddick, and I am an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church of Greater New Jersey, serving on higher ground, sometimes occasionally from Sal. Right now we're on even ground, just across the way from each other. And we are definitely going to be redistricting. Right now, I'm in the Skylands district, and you know, as things shift, demographics change and all of that, I think all denominations are probably in that process of shifting things around to make it work. So it happens. That happens from time to time. And actually, believe it or not, the Greater New Jersey Annual Conference was once the Northern New Jersey Conference and the Southern New Jersey Conference. So that happens all the time where things consolidate, and it's normal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we have with us a very rocking guest.
A very rocking guest who, this is your third time now?
I think so. Yeah, third.
So. Yeah, third at least. Yeah.
We got Reverend Blake back with us. So introduce yourself, Blake.
Reverend Blake Severson. If we're going to go, you're the Rockin Reverend, I guess I could be the Viking Vicar. Is that
is perfect. The Rockin Reverend.
Perfect.
Oh, we got it. Like, he has to be the third mic. He's the third pastor, man. It just happens. And he's bearded.
So yeah, the Viking Vicar from the wasteland of the Midwest. I do have some love for the Midwest, but not in the summer. It's going to be 90 degrees here. It felt like it was 100 when I took my daughter to school at 8:00 in the morning.
Yeah,
I got no time for it. But serving in Rock Island, Illinois,
ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that, especially me. Yeah, happy to join you guys again. Glad we could make it work.
Viking Vicar.
We tried to get it rolling before I took off to Alaska, and everything fell apart. And now here we are 2 months later. So.
Yeah. Glad to have you back. And Viking Vicar is definitely sticking. Just saying.
Cool.
That's definitely going to stick. And the Rockin Reverend and Sal, you can claim whatever you want. we've got the nicknames rolling. You have to figure that out now because we've got the nicknames going.
Eugene, honestly, Sal, can't we just call you the Angel of Death? Isn't that kind of what you do?
That is what I do. That kind of goes with the Viking Vicar and the
Rockin Reverend, the Viking Vicar, and the Angel of Death. That is it right there. Oh my God, it's a thing. It just happened, and we got to figure out what Gene Taylor's name is. Our regulars. We got to come up with names for all of them. Okay, the Rev Leviathan has already got his name, so he's cool. I lost where we are, but yeah, there we are.
It is.
So welcome.
Introductions managed.
Check.
So welcome to the Party on JohnCast with the Viking Vicar, the Rockin Rev, and the Angel of Death.
Here you go. Yeah.
There we go. That's our new intro. So that brings us to our Hebrews.
And he does.
How do you know that God likes coffee, guys?
How?
He wrote about it in the book of Hebrews, written by maybe Paul.
Probably not.
Probably not.
probably not. No. But somebody who had a proclivity toward Hebrews. Or Hebrews, either way. It's all in the pronounce. It's all in the syllables, right? It's all in where you pronounce the emphasis. Yeah, and pronunciate the emphasis. Okay, so so that brings us to Hebrews. So who wants to go first? And none of us are. Well, that's not true. So that leads us to Sal. Did I confuse you, Sal?
I heard half of that, so I'm not sure what you said.
Oh, I said I said that we none of us are drinking brew, and I said, oh, actually that's not true. That leaves us to Sal.
Yeah, I am drinking the Swirl of Death, Dunkin Donuts iced coffee with the Swirl of Death. Going with the Angel of Death theme.
The Death Swirl.
The Death Swirl. Because I'm sure it's doing wonders for my colon.
Oh, that's getting a flush. That is getting a flush. Oh, that's so getting a flush. Okay.
Iced coffee. It's a little healthier because I put oat milk in it today. But iced coffee, sugar-free vanilla shot. You know.
Yeah.
The crack of Dunkin Donuts.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while since I drank Dunkin on our podcast.
Just to forewarn you, Sal, that table is very, very squeaky.
every time you touch it, it's
painful.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all good.
It'd be very hard for me to touch it.
So we need you to engage your hovering powers in the Angel of Death.
If you touch it, Mr. Angel of Death, go with a gentle touch. Oh boy. Oh, juvenile minds. They never. Oh God. This is always a riot on the Party on John class. Party on John cast or class. It could be a class sometimes. Okay, so you're drinking Dunkin's Death Swirl coffee. Try it out, guys. It's great. I guess that who wants to go next? You want to go, Blake?
So I'm just drinking a double shot of espresso, my third of the morning, and it's 10:30 here. But it's Alaskan Kaladi Brothers coffee. It's our favorite. We bring back loads of it whenever we go up. So it's just a little taste of Alaska and a reminder of the good times and the cold temperatures.
Gotcha.
Yeah. We were up there for 5.5 weeks, and it never got above 75 the entire time. It was glorious.
Man, that's perfect, ain't it?
Yeah, and humidity basically just doesn't exist. It's just so good.
I don't know, Sal. As an introvert, could you do that?
I could do 75 and no humidity and just hang out in a sweatshirt all day. I could do that.
But you like the crowds of people, though, right?
What crowds of people?
I would love it there.
I know you would love it. I know you love it.
80% of the state lives in one city.
Yes, it's so true. Well, they're not counting the bears and
Yeah, right.
the moose and all that.
The mosquitoes are a thing. My daughter still has welts on her from the mosquitoes.
Oh, I bet.
They were unbelievable.
Is there a place in the world mosquitoes don't thrive? Because I have yet to find it.
Yeah, Colorado and the high mountains.
Colorado, you're right. I've been to Colorado. I've been in the high mountains, and there are zero mosquitoes there. You are absolutely right. True story. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. And on glaciers, they do not like it on glaciers.
No. Yeah.
So
So live on a glacier or live a mile high and you're good. Yeah. So everywhere else you're gonna get bit. So enjoy, have fun, scratch away.
Circle of life.
Circle of life. It's just, and it forms a circle of life right on your skin. It's really cool. So that brings it to me. I'm drinking a seltzer. That's boring. So I am drinking what is Dunkin. Dunkin created their own crack. It's called Pomegranate blueberry pomegranate refresher. I bought him a small one just so he could taste it. Sal, what do you think?
It is like crack.
It's like once you have this, you're jonesing for it. And you know what Dunkin did that is really wrong? If you're going to create something that you're going to cause people to jones for, if you're going to create addicts out there, you don't cut the supply when there's a demand. This stuff is so good, and Dunkin's like, yeah, we're not going to do this anymore. And then they put out this thing called apple cranberry for the fall, to be all cutesy for the fall. And I swear to God, it tastes like it's straight out of Yankee Candle's autumn collection.
Awful.
Do not drink it. unless you're into drinking Yankee Candle, then you go for that. But no, thank you.
I actively avoid stores when those stupid cinnamon pine cones come out because they give me migraines.
Migraines. Yeah. You would not like this drink. If you get migraines from Yankee Candles, like most people who walk by it, do not drink that drink.
Yeah.
Avoid it. Just take apple juice, throw some, throw some cranberry into it, add some green tea, and you'll have your own refresher in no time, and it'll taste great. Don't do the Dunkin' one. Okay, so that's what I'm drinking anyway, but it is delicious, and it is quite addicting. And this one Dunkin' by us stocked up, knowing they were getting out of it. So they're the only Dunkin' on this side of Jersey that has it, and it's beautiful, and it's 2 minutes away from my house. So if you can find one, Blake, and you want to try it and then be addicted to something that you'll never have again afterwards, this is really good.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
You're quite excused. May God's blessings rain down upon you. And you caught
of death. Stay away.
Yeah, stay away. And you did catch your soul, so you should be safe.
Well, it's on my elbow now.
Yeah. It's weird catching your soul like this. I mean, it's really not sure who thought that one.
Good for public health, bad for keeping your soul, I guess.
Yeah. It keeps the germs out of people's mouths, but it keeps your soul from coming back in. It's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so wow, we digressed. So that brings us to our most excellent music segment. Blake edition. Yeah. Okay, who's going first?
Well, I'll let Blake go first since he's our guest.
Sure. So got a couple few things. The one that pops to mind though is something that my daughter and I are bonding over right now. So I take her to school. Her school is only a couple of blocks away, and the line to get into this place in all directions is usually about 30 cars deep, because it's like single, kind of 2-lane roads ending at the one driveway to get into this school. So it's just completely bonkers. So I ride my bike with her little carrier cart on the back, and I just bypass all of it. But I got this little Bluetooth speaker, and so I like to play music for her while we're. And there's this. I may have mentioned them at another time around Eurovision time, but I'm kind of like big into Eurovision music. I think most of it's hilarious, but some of it's actually good. And the guy that we listen to a lot is a guy named Dadi Freya in the Icelandic. He's an Icelandic pop star. He was their selection for Eurovision this last year. And I love it because it's like Stranger Things music. You know what I mean by that? It's got that video game quality to it.
Absolutely. I love that. Yep.
That like hits my 80s kid pleasure buttons big time. And so that's his style of music. And it's also tremendous. He's a lot of fun. Their music videos are ridiculous. So there's this one that he wrote to celebrate his 10-year anniversary of life that is a battle between Dadi Freya and their band and a giant chicken monster, a la the old like sea level monster movies. It's awesome. There's another one where there's just a cutout, like a Photoshop cutout of his head on a clumsily moving body that is fighting robots. That's that they made.
Yeah. That sounds great, man. I'll have to definitely check that out. What's that?
Yeah. It's just, I've been listening to that a lot because we listen to it every day at drop off and pickup. And then the other one, kind of a bonus, is looks like I'm getting unstable again.
You're coming through fine on our end.
Okay, good. But the other kind of bonus one would be this band called Skald, Skald, and they're a Nordic kind of traditional Norse music group. And so one of the things you do in Alaska when you're hiking alone is you play music because you want the bears to know that you're coming. And so I decided to listen to that a lot while I was out hiking. And so we were there for 5.5 weeks and I put in about 160 miles on my feet. So I listened to them a lot.
So you mean to tell me you don't want to sneak up on a good old Kodiak bear while you're hiking the wilderness in Alaska alone?
Well, so here's a fun fact of the podcast.
Okay, cool. I love that.
Fun fact of the podcast. For bear safety, if you run into a Kodiak or a grizzly, which are essentially the same thing, it's just like their zip code, right? Yeah, they're the same thing. It's just the Kodiaks live on Kodiak, right? But those bears, the brown bears, you are to play dead.
Yep.
And one of the reasons is because they're massive, right? You're not going to win in a fight against that bear. The other reason, which I learned, is that they will not eat you. They will hurt you. They will not eat you. The same cannot be said for black bears.
No, black bears will. That's right.
Black bears will absolutely eat you while you're still living. And that's why you're supposed to fight, because playing dead doesn't work. If they want to eat you, they're going to eat you.
It's funny because that's right. Because we live in black bear country out here. We live in black bear country. And it's funny. People think black bears are like the cute little cuddly version of the grizzly. And that is not the case at all. I mean,
like they will destroy you. Brown
don't
bears are bigger and stronger, and they can kill you.
And
they're not going to do it on purpose.
Yeah, they're more aggressive when they have to be, but only when they have to be. Right. And the same thing is true.
Only insofar as making sure you're no longer a threat.
A threat, right. And the black bear typically is less aggressive overall, but if they are hungry and they're looking for food and they see you as that possible source, you're done. There's no outrunning them.
So fight.
Yeah,
fight. Yeah. Anyway. So I did not. And honestly, the other part too is moose. Moose hurt more people than bears in Alaska.
Yeah, moose are nasty.
Moose are gigantic jerks.
Yeah. Gigantic jerks.
Well, anyway, so nickname. It was kind of this cool experience of like hiking and being out in the wilderness alone and listening to this like old Viking Norse music. It was pretty cool. Hence the Viking Vicar. It's my walk-up song if I was a professional athlete, is some crazy like Nordic chant.
Yeah. Sal, I think you need at this point. Oh, there is an echo. Cool. Sal, I think at this point you need to end this episode with instead of don't be a jerk or don't be a gigantic jerk, don't be a moose.
Don't be a moose.
Which is a gigantic jerk. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. We do that. Yeah.
Beautiful
I think that
animal.
might be their Latin name. Jercus giganticus. That's the moose.
Jercus giganticus. And they're beautiful. But then again, a lot of beautiful people tend to be jerks. So I shouldn't say that. That may be a blanket statement, but still, it fits. It does fit. Okay, so So what did I just suggest there? That we all should be ugly. Good. Okay, that's great. Okay. So what are you going to do, Sal?
So I'll share my music. I've been listening a lot lately to. It's a band they're formerly called a tribe called Red. They go by the Halsey Nation now. They're a band out of Canada. They're both First Nations, Indigenous people. One is Mohawk and one is Cayuga First Nation. And so it's a mix of dubstep and hip hop and indigenous. They coined the phrase themselves. They coined the phrase powwow step. They'll play on dubstep and powwow music because it incorporates a lot of electronic music with First Nations chanting and drumming. So we listen to that a lot lately. If you Google Halsey Nation, they have a song called Electric Powwow Drum. It says drum and electronica. So.
Nice. Yeah. Cool. So I have once again gotten back into listening to Birds of Prey, which is the soundtrack to Birds of Prey, which is the soundtrack to the film with Margot Robbie and a whole host of different people, including Rosie Perez, for that matter. It was good to see Rosie Perez back on the screen. And she plays a badass cop. Anyway, so that album is just so good. And it's not music I would traditionally listen to. It's a lot of, well, it's not, I shouldn't say that. I listen to anything that's rhythmic. And one thing I've noticed, metal fans might not want to agree with this, but metal and dance are not all that different. Just different instruments and different ways of distorting them to make different sounds, but it's a rhythmic, they're both rhythmic styles of music. So this is a very dancey kind of album, but it also has angst and metal thrown in there, and it's just brilliant. It's just, the music is brilliant. My first brush up with Megan Thee Stallion was off of this album, so I thought she was totally kosher till I started listening to some of her other music, and I said, whoa. Woo, go Megan. Okay, I'm not listening to that anymore. But and I don't judge anybody who does, but it's just not for me. But anyway, it's a great album. So the song that I am picking off this album is from Halsey, who is a Jersey girl. Little fun fact. In fact, let's see where she was from. I don't think she was from too far away from here. Let's see. Halsey is originally from Edison, New Jersey, maybe an hour away from where I live. So not too far away. All of that to say, I'm doing a song by her off of that soundtrack called Experiment on Me. And no doubt this is probably a breakup song, which fits with the theme of the film. But I'll read the lyrics. There are some, words in here, not too terrible, but I'm going to not censor them anyway. It says here, bet you think you get the picture. Bitch, you don't know how good I treat you. Shake it off, this pride and glory. You dig up so many stories. Oh, you're so under the thumb. 4 fingers and form a knuckle sandwich. Try my blood. It's just a starter. No one tastes like me. Yeah, I'm pretty like a car crash. Ugly as a lullaby. You really want to try it? Experiment on me. Experiment on me. Experiment on me. And then, the lyrics continue to go on. I won't repeat the chorus because it's the same, but girl, I've been way too much to handle. Bitch, never been a good example. Seen, not heard, is what they told me. I look too good to be this lonely. Oh, grab this loaded gun. So hopeless, but I'm still romantic, bloodstained, and I'm gonna blow a kiss. And I bet it tastes like me. And then she says, You lock up your sons, make way for the, or lock up your sons, make way for the daughters. You be the lamb and we'll be the slaughter. You've burned the witches, now you're defenseless. Who needs a Y with this many X's, referring to the chromosome. So it's like a girl power kind of song, definitely a post-breakup kind of song. But I like it because you could take it out of that context and think about any time people have tried to take you down. You know, anytime people have underestimated you, taken you for granted, stomped all over you, exploited you, and think about the way, at least for me, listening to the song, the way you've overcome those things. And of course, in the Christian context, it's through the power of Jesus Christ and the grace of God that's gotten me through the things in my life, which is obviously not present in that song, but you can certainly read that into it if you wanted to. And it certainly fits me, you know, like I look back at those things that could have brought me down and they didn't. And it's like, yeah, experiment on me. God's got my back, you know, whatever, you know. Here I am. Oh, you're another one who doesn't like me. Join the list. You know, like, and that's kind of the feel of the song. And I appreciate it, even though I'm taking it in a different direction than it was intended, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. So I like it. Yeah. And it's a rockin' song, and she's like Halsey can scream. Like she's got a good screaming voice. I'm impressed with her screaming voice. Yeah. It's more like, I think, on the Kurt Cobain side of screaming, and not like a death, you know, not an angel of death growl, but it definitely is a legit scream. It's good. Yeah.
So that brings up for me another song from Dadi that I think would be good, especially considering where I think our conversation may be going sooner or later.
Eventually.
So he's got this song called Somebody Else Now. I'd like to do the things I like to do. I'd like to say the things I like to say, but I need to hear all there is. I need to hear not only what I want. And the chorus is, I never thought I needed to change, but it makes me proud to say that I'm somebody else now. Somebody's not here to say he'll be going away soon, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind. I promise you will be fine. That's great. You know, and I think that, you know, that song comes up a lot. And
I think you froze a little there. If you could just repeat that last sentence. Yeah,
sorry. I'm literally sitting on the router right now. I don't know what's going on. It's MediaCom. Blame MediaCom. MediaCom, suck it.
And we blame Optimum, so no worries.
Fair enough. But you know, just the song makes me think about how viciously our culture pushed against changing our in.
I guess that sentence is not meant to be said.
All right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to stop my video.
Okay.
Cleans things up.
Yeah. And if you text it to us, we could repeat it if it's something you want said while you're doing that. So anyway, that's our most excellent music segment. And while we always enjoy the music that we suggest, we would always be open to others suggesting. And by all means, if you would like to come on to the Party on JohnCast, obviously first dibs go to our Patreon members, but anybody can suggest music, and that could even end up with an invite on the show. So you never know. Blake just said what he was trying to say is just thinking about the song saying it's okay to change our mind, but how countercultural that is in our country right now. And indeed it is. And I think we kind of got the gist of him saying that, but it was hard with him freezing. Yep. Are you still there, Blake?
I am. Cool. I'm hoping that the video off will clean things up.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and that's a beautiful picture. Is that Alaska there?
That is actually Banff National Park. That's Bull Lake. Took that in 2017 when I was driving to Alaska.
Okay, gotcha. Wow. And now Sal disappeared. This is fun. This is like it's like hide and go seek. I'm gonna do it now. I'm just gonna be like, I'm just gonna go, hey, goodbye. we can all just try this. Anyway, so that brings us to our topic, and we're gonna call this, and then we'll just call it the episode this too. What if? This is our what if, and this topic subject actually was suggested to us by the wonderful Reverend Blake Severson. So Blake,
Vicar, please.
Oh, excuse me. The Viking Victor Blake Severson. That's right, the Viking Vicar. So if the Viking Vicar could explain to us this idea, and we will go with it.
Yeah. So it came from a couple of different things. First is the new Marvel show, the new Marvel animated that just kind of out of it. It seems like it was a bit of a surprise. Jumped onto the streaming services last week, called What Introduction to the Multiverse, saying what if this pivotal moment in Marvel comic history happened a different way. First example being that in Captain America, there's this moment where Hydra operative tries to stop Steve Rogers becoming Captain America. But what worked, and instead Agent Carter jumps in the super soldier cage and becomes the super soldier. So that's the first episode. And it's awesome.
That sounds
great. It's really good. And then the next one, which I haven't watched yet, is what if T'Challa became Star-Lord instead of Chris Pratt, because I can't think of the main character's name.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. Wow.
And so they're going to be doing this whole series about this, because if you've watched Loki, you know there are moments where things divert, and then you have this whole other universe that is created from little things that change.
I actually have not watched Loki yet, so
you got to do it.
Shame on me. My daughter watched it, so I'm not sure why I haven't. But I will. I will be watching.
But it's great. So that's part of it. But also, I'm taking a training right now on bi-vocational ministry, because in no small part, I believe that the future of ordained ministry is going to be bi-vocational. Our churches can't sustain it for the most part. But in that came a question of just the question of what would you do, right? What would be your thing? And it led me to think of what would happen, right? If this, because most people in the clergy have a moment, right, that they remember clearly of being the moment that they decided to go into this thing that we're all doing. And so that's really kind of where it came from, was those two things that I've been experiencing lately of what if.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's a great introduction to the segment. So let's start there. What if you weren't a pastor? Anybody want to start off with that? Well, I haven't started off with anything yet, have I?
It's your turn.
I guess it's my turn.
Oh,
the Viking Victor has just told the Rockin Reverend to go. So rock out. Okay. Yeah, that's a very good question, because honestly, I've tried different things. I was something else before I became a pastor. I was a computer programmer and then a stay-at-home dad, not initially by choice, but I would not change it for the world. It's just that I lost my job and didn't have enough experience to get a new job. It was one of those things where I had experience, but just not enough. So, how do you get more experience when jobs won't hire you because you don't have the experience? It's a really vicious cycle that is hard to get out of. And people don't realize that. You see people who are unemployed and you think, oh, what lazy bums. Don't assume that, because that could be you someday. Just throwing that out there. Anyway, so I was, something else besides a pastor. But religion has always been vital in my life. It's always been front and center. God has always been front and center. Even when I wasn't Christian, I was Wiccan. I was never atheist. I could never be atheist. It's just not who I am. So, but now on the flip, so I can't picture myself doing anything other than what I'm doing. is what I'm trying to say. This is what I picture myself doing. If I had to be bivocational, and you're right, Blake, I think that is a reality coming in the future. Maybe in our ministry time, maybe in the generations that follow us, but it is in the future, I think, in the immediate future.
Yeah.
And if I had to be bivocational, I know what I would do, but I'm not going to share that publicly. I will share. You know what I'll do? I'll share.
It's an OnlyFans page, isn't it?
It is. I will share what I would do on my OnlyFans page. Yeah. So you know what? We're going to share this on the bonus segment on Patreon. If you want to hear what I would potentially do right now in the moment as bivocational, you go there and you'll hear it. But you'll only hear it if you pay the $5 to hear it. So we need the support. This is free. We do this for the love of Christ and for the love of you. And we would love a little love back. So thank you. But yeah, so that's my shtick. How about you guys?
Well, I'm kind of in that, and it's interesting because in our presbytery, since I came into what was Newton Presbytery is now Presbytery of the Highlands, you see more and more folks coming in validated ministries. It used to be I was the only chaplain. Yeah. We now have 2 other folks who are hospice chaplains, one full-time, myself full-time, and another who is part-time hospice, part-time in a pulpit, and he is also a social worker, former social worker.
You broke the ice.
I broke the ice. I made it okay. I normalized it.
You did.
So, but like Todd, I have done other things besides ministry. When I worked for a shipping company before I started seminary, went to seminary, couldn't get through the ordination process right away when I graduated seminary, so I had to work. So I was a assistant store manager at a music store for a couple of years. I was a youth pastor. Had I not gone into ministry, I would have probably been a high school history teacher because that's what my degree was in. But now that I'm in hospice work, I'm probably going to go back to school to do some sort of counseling. So just the nature of the work I'm doing. So
you're going to probably go back to school and do some like pastoral counseling type, like social work counseling.
Yep.
Makes sense. A social work degree for a chaplain would be a real bonus.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I wish I had thought of that while I was in seminary. But
it happens. Thankfully, I think it's a shorter. I know it is. It's a shorter program than seminary. So
much shorter program.
Yeah. You probably fly through that, relatively speaking. Okay, how about you, Blake?
Short of sailing the seas and pillaging on the beaches. It's an interesting question because I also can't see myself doing anything else than what I'm doing. Right? I love what I do, but I also know that the thing that has changed or shifted with me is that I know that churches can't afford it.
Right.
The other part that has honestly been the best part of this particular thought process for me is that I don't think we should anymore. I see the way in which professionalized ministry in churches, for lack of a better term, is robbing people of the potential to be disciples of Christ.
Yes.
Because pastor does it all means I don't have to. And the stuff that we do as members of the body of Christ is the whole of our discipleship journey. And when the professional comes in and takes it all or does the catch-all or, when projects rise and fall or live and die based on if pastor does it or not, it doesn't allow people to live into their gifts. And it also, one of the things I see as something that could be super positive in it is if I'm part-time in the pulpit at a church, right? Maybe half or 3/4 time, whatever it may be. right? But they also see me going and working and living my faith in my workplace, right? That is, to me, an untapped mission field, because most of our people think that faith life happens in that 1 hour in the uncomfortable chairs on Sunday morning, and then the rest of my life is the rest of my life.
That's the least of where it happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's only 1 out of how many hours in a week?
Right.
And so, I see that as a real opportunity. So one of the things they've asked us to do in this training is to think about what you might do as like a side hustle or a gig. This is coming more from an entrepreneurial standpoint, right? I desperately want to live in Alaska. And even if that meant part-time, I would do it, because Alaska is that meaningful to me and to my family. We lived with our in-laws for 5.5 weeks, and we were all sad when it was over. That's a pretty good sign that we've got a good thing going there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah. And I do agree with you. And here's something I wanted to say. If you look at it biblically, ministers were bivocational. Paul was bivocational. Yeah. It was the ministry was done for free, and the payment came in way of food, shelter, support, blah blah blah. But Paul paid his own way, because he also made tents. He was a tent maker. Barnabas did what he did, and Priscilla and Aquila, they were tent makers along with Paul. So these people, they weren't just doing ministry and getting paid to do ministry. No, they were doing ministry because they were called by Christ to do ministry, and they paid their way to do it and got support along the way from other Christians. This idea that it should all fall on the pastor to do all the work and we'll just give him a big fat paycheck and go on our way the rest of the week is really not a biblical model.
And this again, this is going to come across as probably greedy or some such, but checks aren't that big and fat. No. For a master's degree, right?
Yep.
The average salary for a master's degree is $69,000 before benefits. Right? That's not what I make. It's not what most of us make, and churches can't make that, or most of our churches are not in a financial place to make a viable go of that. Mm-hmm. And we have kind of convinced them that they can't function without a full-time pastor, and that's to the detriment of the church, individual churches and the church.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But so in terms of what I would do, I think it would be, I've thought about things like getting into some kind of a healthcare field, radiation tech or something like that provides a service to people, helps people. That was what I was going towards before I decided to go to seminary. I wanted to be a physical therapist, occupational therapist. So my what if moment, or the question would be, what if the ladder hit me in the shoulder instead of the head? Because I think I told that story one of the other times that, what sent me to seminary was a ladder to the head. So what if it missed, right? What if it missed me and I carried on? I would have, probably carried on being occupational therapy, physical therapy, may not have gone to seminary. But
sure.
Otherwise, this idea of, if I have a church, right, and I'm part-time at a church, something I'd love to do is to try to create a small business. I love board games, and we had a really great experience at a board game bar in Copenhagen on our honeymoon, where they have what they call board games on tap. They had something like 200 different games, and then you pay you can pay an annual membership, or you pay a per game fee. So they try to get you to give that money up front. But then you come in, hang out, play games. You can put a little thing on your table that says we need players, so you get to meet new people. But I've always thought that would be a really great way to build relationship and community and connection. Is through something like that. And I could see that being a huge blessing, not as this evangelism technique for the church, but just a way to get to know our neighbors. Because honestly, before we can even think about evangelism, we actually have to know our neighbors a little bit.
That's the problem. Evangelism to the church nowadays is we'll hold a service and they'll come to us, and that's not evangelism. That's programmatic. That's not an evangelism at all.
Right. I've had a growing sense that discipleship is every interaction we have with people as Christians, right? We are discipling them. We are showing them the way of Christ and the way that we interact with others.
Yeah.
And being in a place like that with games and, friendship and building relationship that way, it opens the opportunity to talk about the ways that we choose to live our lives. Because that's what you talk about over board games, right? You talk about life.
Right.
And, I could see that as being a really cool thing. Also, if we were in Alaska, I'd like to start like a wilderness guide company, but kind of focus it in on the spiritual aspects and how to connect when you're out in wilderness for people that are looking for that.
Sounds great, man.
So I expect you guys to sign up if it ever comes to fruition. I'll take you somewhere cool.
Oh, please, we will.
We can do it. We could do a recorded in the wilderness voices in the wilderness party on JohnCast would be great.
That would be great. We have to do it. We have to make that a thing.
We've got the Appalachian Trail. We've got Alaska. We got some options.
We do have options, and I say we do make it a 2-part thing. Maybe not back to back, but we go out to you and you come out to us.
Sure.
I'm game.
I'm game.
We're gonna work on this. We're gonna make it happen.
Cool.
Okay, so there's something for you guys to look forward to who are listening to this. We're going to be on a road trip sometime. Okay, so that was a great what if right there. Any other what if questions that we want to answer?
I think wasn't one of the other questions that you proposed, Blake, was what if you never got into metal?
Oh yeah,
metal music.
Yeah, and again, let's looking at, can you remember, right? Can you remember the moment or the thing that kind of drove you in that direction, right? Mm-hmm. And so maybe that's an opportunity to tell that story of how you started getting into that kind of music, and then what do you think would happen if you didn't?
Yeah. I can't say I truly got into metal as much as I am until the late 90s. I mean, yeah, I listened to Metallica and hold on one second. Excuse me. I had to sneeze.
Bye-bye, Soul.
Yeah, Soul just went back into the arm. So
Soul collected it.
Sal's the soul collector, the angel of death. Yes, who drinks his death swirl. My soul is now in the death swirl. Okay, so yeah, so I listened to, obviously growing up, I listened to Metallica, Megadeth, Iron Maiden, those types of metal things, and I liked them. But I like them the same way I liked Guns N' Roses, Bon Jovi, I can go down any list of hair metal bands that I liked at that time. And then, 90s hit, Nirvana, grunge, punk, goth, goth was in the 80s, but that's when I kind of got into it, was in the 90s. So I would say what really, because I was so into goth in the 90s and still am to this day, what really got me into metal was a band called Moonspell. And I only found them because we were at the Wall. Do you remember the Wall back in the day, guys? The CD music store?
No, I don't know if that one made it to the Midwest.
Maybe not, but it used to be at the Rockaway Mall, and it was all up and down the East Coast, I know, the Wall. And it was a CD store, much like FYE or something like that. So I remember going there, and I was with one of my friends and bandmates, and he's like, dude, look at this. This is totally up your alley. And it was two wolves going at it. And I'm like, yeah, look at that, fangs out and all. I'm like, that is totally my thing. And I put it in, and there was this nice gothic, ding, 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 and it just sounded like beautiful, clean guitar, and it was going real dark, and you knew it was going to be an awesome thing. And then all of a sudden it was like, da, 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 da. And I remember jumping like, oh my God, what is this? And then just listen to it. And I'm like, I've got to have this CD. I've got to have this. This is like, oh my God. And I bought that. And I've been a Moonspell fan ever since. I've seen them, met them. I've gotten their CDs signed and then became a Christian and threw it out because I thought God wanted me to. But that's another story for another day. And I since have repented of my ways to God and rebought all of those albums, and it's a happy love story. But I don't have their signatures anymore. So, the things you do as a foolish young Christian. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, like, that's where I really got into metal. And then of course, I started, getting into even heavier stuff. And right around that time, so I probably found them around 96 or 7. I'd say by the early 2000s, I found Demon Hunter, which was a Christian band. And I had come back, mid 2000s, I'd come back to Christianity. And then I started getting even heavier with my metal. And it just was an evolution from there. But Moonspell would be when it really became like a part of who I am, as opposed to just something I listened to and dug here and there. Yeah. And I can't hear you because I just took off my earphones. There we go. Hello, guys. I'm back. So that's my answer.
Yeah. Well, I was a huge. We had MTV, we had cable when I was growing up, right? And so music videos were everything.
Yeah.
I remember, like, just sitting there and like with a tape in the VCR, waiting for the videos that we wanted to record, and we had just like endless VHSs of just music videos that we had recorded.
Absolutely. Yep.
But so I was big into, I was a big Poison fan, Bon Jovi, because that's what it was, right? Like,
that's why I like you, Blake. We connect.
Was the deal, right? Like, but I remember very clearly seeing the video for Enter Sandman.
Yes.
And my eyes just like widened. I was like, what?
That was my first introduction to metal, was Enter Sandman. And then I started diving into Megadeth and Iron Maiden, and Enter Sandman, I think, caught a lot of people up into metal.
I mean, it's an iconic song for a reason, right? And so, but I remember that, and like that started the journey. But not long after that, a friend of my mom's who she worked with, he's a Jersey guy, took me to a Kiss concert when I was in 5th grade. And there was all the explosions and crazy set pieces. And so that kind of pushed it further, because I had this other person that I respected and looked up to that, dug the same kind of music. I mean, I wouldn't call Kiss metal. They're rock, right? They're not metal. But still this
but they have the persona.
Yeah, this thing shifted. And then really the nail in the coffin, I think, of my metal fandom and kind of my what if moment was I went to visit my brother at college once, and his roommate Kurtz was a huge heavy metal guy. And we were just sitting around watching MTV, and it was like Headbangers Ball. And I knew all of the bands, and this college guy that I was just like, worshipped was like, holy cow, man, you're pretty cool. You know all these bands. And that just kind of like was this like validation that I was doing something right with my life.
Yeah.
And so that really just kind of started driving it. And then, I got into, being in football circles, right? You're in the locker rooms, and it's nothing but just the craziest, heaviest stuff you can find. And that, carried it on.
I would say Headbangers Ball was a big part of my youth. And it was always at night, late night. Like, it was the best. They need to bring that back. Where is that?
Yeah, I think that seems to be a common denominator, because me growing up, my first time I ever went to Tower Records.
Tower, yeah.
And my parents were like, okay, you could buy your first cassette. And I bought Europe Final Countdown, because it had just come on. We had just moved back to the States. It was on heavy rotation on MTV. So, like you guys, was into all the hair metal, and because that was popular. It wasn't until the early 90s when I started middle school, started staying up late to watch Headbangers Ball, and started seeing bands like Fate's Warning and Ugly Kid Joe.
Oh, Ugly Kid Joe.
Yeah.
Cats in the Cradle. Yeah.
Cats in the Cradle. Stuff like that. Like, of course, Megadeth and Metallica. But and then actually my sister, for a while there, when she was in high school and college, got mixed up in the skinhead scene, like the white power skinhead.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got into, like, I never went into that stuff, but I got into the hardcore, like the exploited hardcore punk.
It's funny how punk picked up that, like punk was so anti that initially, anti like government, anti like you just don't trust anything, and then for that to pick up the skin, it's an odd, but when you think about it, kind of makes sense. Marriage, it's weird.
Well, I wonder what direction it went. I honestly, if I had to look at, looking at the tactics that, white supremacists and those types of groups use, they try to use the music of the disaffected and the lonely.
Of course.
If that's not punk, I don't know what is.
If that's not punk, yep. If that's not, and
so
metal too.
They probably tried to utilize that style, knowing who they'd be talking to. Right.
Absolutely.
I think about that a lot. I have a friend who we had conversations about this when I was in Colorado.
Oh, you're fading in and out there.
All right. Yeah. I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, right now.
Okay. But she's, she's a Black woman, and I talked about how, like, if she heard the music I listened to and saw me with a bald head and a beard, right?
Mm-hmm.
If she didn't really know the words, it would be so easy to make the assumption, because that was what the music was tailored to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so yeah, I would like to think that punk got co-opted, not.
I agree. That's exactly. I agree. That's exactly what happened. It got co-opted by, and it's like I said, it's an odd, strange like occurrence. And by and large, most punk music is everything against that. Like, but it's weird. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But it sounds right, and then you start hearing the words, and those words, words carry power.
Yeah, they do. Yes, they do. So wow.
But yeah, if I hadn't heard, I'd probably still be down with some sick hair bands and pop rock. But I like some of it, but for I feel like metal drove me deeper into the possibilities of the music.
Yeah, I agree. I still like. I mean, I've got Bon Jovi tattooed to me, so I still love Bon Jovi, and I dig like hair metal bands, but I feel like metal gave me an expression of my anger, my angst, my frustration. It was a way of getting all of that nasty stuff out of me in a constructive and healthy way that like nothing else did. Nothing else was able to do that for me.
Right.
And I've heard a lot of people, and I've actually used metal as a form of ministry. There are people who have anxiety or anger, who have parent issues, or have whatever the case may be. And I'll be like, hey, have you checked out this song? And they listen to it and they come back and they're like, where'd you get this? I want more. And it's because it speaks to their soul. It's healing. It really is. So I find metal to be one of the most healing musics.
Oh yeah. I've used more metal and metalcore and on days where I have really rough pastoral visits, and it helps you process.
And again, it's rhythmic. It's same thing with dance. I mean, try dancing and then walk away and be depressed. You can't. It's impossible. So there's something to be said about getting that energy out of you. There's something to be said about that. And it nothing does it like metal. Nothing does it like dance. They're just the opposite side of it. And it, any rhythmic music I'm down with. I love. But I'm more of a metal guy, obviously. I don't know what would make you think that, right?
I can't. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, I just, for some reason, I feel like I have to say like the one of the other songs that really turned me over was Epic by Faith No More.
Oh yeah.
Like, because that one came, I remember watching that I can envision the scene, like our brown couch in our house where I grew up, and that song came on, and it was so different from everything else that was happening, and I was just like, what is this?
There's another metal band that is often not attributed to metal. They're more attributed to grunge, but if you really listen to them, they're definitely metal. And there was a whole article on this, but Alice in Chains.
Yes.
And Down in a Hole could be a theme song for me at any given point in my life. Everybody knows Rooster. A lot of people know Down in a Hole too, but like that song Down in a Hole and that album by Alice in Chains, just a phenomenal album, which shows also that metal doesn't have to be in your face for it to be metal. But there is no doubt Jerry Cantrell and Lane Staley were just brilliant duo together, and the music that came from them is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I go back and forth on whether Lane Staley is the second or third best lead vocals to ever do it.
I'm with you.
I give number one to Cornell, because Cornell was just otherworldly.
I was gonna say the other one in that metal grunge mix is Soundgarden. Cornell. Yeah, he's the other one.
That first album of Soundgarden, I had never really given it a listen until he died. It is
phenomenal,
unbelievable, and it's so different, right? Like, everybody talks about the grunge scene with Pearl Jam and Nirvana.
Yeah.
But honestly, musically, they were like 3 and 4 out of those bands to me, right? Like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden were better bands. I think Pearl Jam and Nirvana were more impactful.
Yeah, they were better bands.
This is maybe a hot take.
They were better bands. I would say that Nirvana came on, or Pearl Jam came on the tailcoat. All of these bands came on the kind of tailcoats of Nirvana, though Alice in Chains had been around the same time. They formed around the same time. Anyway, the success of Pearl Jam definitely came on the tails of Nirvana. And Pearl Jam was grunge for a while, but I wouldn't even count them a grunge band, really. They're kind of like a protest band in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Nirvana, I think what made Nirvana happen was that Kurt was one of those rare personalities, as was Lane Staley, and as was Cornell, though it took Cornell a little longer. But Kurt was one of those rare personalities that came on the scene, lit stuff up, and then disappeared about as quickly as he came on. And that just made him legendary, that in a way that those other bands, as talented and as talented as they are, they're going to always be underappreciated to a band like, Nirvana. The Doors too. Think about how many great bands were out there, and the Doors were great. There's no doubt. There's no taking away the iconic nature of Nirvana or the Doors or bands like that. But there were so many other great bands out there. It's just that the circumstances made them the icons.
It's something about the 27 Club.
Right.
Joplin, Morrison, Hendrix, who this meteoric rise, and then 27. They're gone. I remember 7th or 8th grade. There was a band that came and played at our middle school, and they played Epic by Faith No More. And myself and a friend who I ended up going to the 8th grade dance with, we were headbanging in the middle of the auditorium, and like we were looked at like we had snakes coming out of our heads, and we're like, whatever. This is how the music connects to us. So I don't know where would it be without that mid-90s
metal, man. And there isn't metal from any genre, from any era that I don't like. Even modern metal. There's some metal that I'm like, oh come on, this is sellout. But there's a lot of good stuff out there. Metal is one of the few genres that's actually producing legitimate music nowadays. It's not a lot of it's still not cookie cutter stuff, because metal, I don't think you'll always have those bands that sell out, but metal by and large is one of those genres that's just never going to sell out. It's just not. So we can talk about Five Finger Death Punch or whatever, but
right. Well, one of the things, coming back to what we all do for a living, one of the things that I dig about metal is that it has continued to change, right? And that the bands that have persisted, that have made it, they don't keep the same sound forever. They change, they move, right. And there's a lesson there for the church.
Absolutely.
That staying fresh is really important, and finding new ways to express the same truths, right? Because a lot of the songs, right, are talking about common themes or different stuff, but they're doing it in a new way that allows it to be fresh again, which I think is really important.
Well, they're talking about like things that happen in life, and things that, if you look at a lot of the early, even Megadeth, Metallica, they're singing about stuff that affected them. It's some of it's protest music, like Peace Sells, but who's buying? But a lot of it is just dealing with emotions. So it connects on that very raw. That's why I think it helps me, at least when I have rough days, to put on some metalcore and process my emotions, because that's some of the most engaged emotionally that I get during the day. I think if I had not, and even there was some stuff that you introduced me to, Blake, in seminary, and I was like mind blown. What is this stuff? And it took me a couple of years to okay, because you introduced me to some harder stuff that I had not been into. But it was legit. So and that, I think that's part of it too. I think about one of the stories that we're all telling, right, is the way that we were effectively discipled into our music fandom, right? That we had a desire to listen to new music, to hear more, because we liked what we liked, but it was people that heard other things that said, hey, check this out, right? And that's, again, I think that's a really important model for the church. That it doesn't have to only be expressed in one way. Like, one of the things I think is funny, and Slayer is good enough, right? But Slayer fans, in my experience, seem to only like Slayer. They do not like much else. If it's not Slayer, they're not down with it. And that's pretty myopic, and it's Slayer or nothing is not a really great way to live, because Slayer's, like I said, Slayer's fine, but not the only music I would ever listen to ever again. And one of the things I see in churches, especially a lot of the churches that I've served, is they're Slayer fans. This is how you do church. There is no other way. And to even suggest so is, tantamount to heresy. And it's just not, it's not healthy. It's not the way that the faith was meant to be lived. But you're right. Even, going back to being introduced to harder music by my sister in her skinhead days, it wasn't that I was put into that, okay, this is what I think and agree with, but it's that community, that looking for belonging, which I think is very much part of the metal scene. And one of the things I appreciate about a band like Phineas, who are Christians and do metalcore, and they're very much about the scene, and how like you're saying, the church gets very myopic and says, this is how we do it, this is how we worship, and the metal scene says, no, the scene is not one set way of doing things. This is coming together as a community, looking to disciple each other.
Correct. Yeah. And Phineas is definitely like Demon Hunter, one of the POJ cast favorites for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sal, did I introduce you to Phineas, or did you find them on your own?
I found them on my own, but I think were you into For Today a lot?
Huge, big time into For Today. I really wish that Maddie hadn't gone crazy.
You had introduced me to For Today, and when I was working at the music store, I became the resident Christian / metal
expert.
guy.
Yeah.
What? How did he go crazy? Because the guy from As I Lay Dying went notoriously crazy too.
No, Maddie went like super duper crazy mega fundy.
Okay.
Like, and I mean, like
he didn't plot his wife's death or anything like.
No.
Good.
But like he started a church in Tennessee, and they, like, were intentionally having house packed worship services, no masks, celebrating the no masks, and like he did a blessing of the guns.
Okay.
Like,
well,
honestly, I have not listened to For Today in probably 3 or 4 years, just because he went so crazy. It's hard for me to do it.
Can't support it. Yep.
Like, and it makes me sad because their music was really foundational in some of the bigger moments of my faith journey. But like, he went so crazy. I just can't do it.
He went crazy and almost it's hard to say plotting your death's wife. Is it? I think it was his wife's death.
It was his wife's death. Yeah.
That he
hired a hitman. I mean, that's awful.
That's awful. But that's like sinful humanity, broken, awful. Not like, hey, we're saved and we're just gonna use Christ to abuse you. Awful.
Twisting the gospel.
Right. I almost have a little more. I almost have a little more sympathy, I guess, for the broken human being who just needs help versus the jerk who thinks that he's God. Of course, if you're planning someone else's murder, you're kind of thinking you're God too, but it's a different kind of thing. Yeah,
that gets into. I don't know if you guys are listening to the Who Killed Mars Hill podcast.
I have not.
I haven't heard it. No, but I will.
It's very much along that. It sounds like Maddie from For Today is kind of on that wave, like very much like Mark Driscoll, the spiritual abuse route.
Well, it's toxic masculinity with Jesus clothing, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's like that Ron Luce, that guy too.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I couldn't fit into Ron Luce's club because I'd have to cut off my skin in order to unbrand myself.
Indeed.
This seems like a good place for us to end the podcast and hop on over to Patreon. What do you guys think?
Did you want to talk about the shithouse theology, or do you think we've done enough?
I think we'll do shithouse theology over at Patreon, and I'll reveal what I would do as a bi-vocation. So if you're really curious to know what the crazy Rockin Reverend will do, then join him, join the Viking Vicar, and join the Angel of Death on over at Patreon. In the meantime, friends, be excellent to each other. Check out those episode notes. Click on the links. Be excellent to each other, and
don't be a moose.
Don't be a moose.
Don't be a jerk.
Don't be a grandiose
Jerkus giganticus.
Jerkus maximus.
Jerkus giganticus. I love it. All right, guys. Well, peace out, y'all.